Hey YouTube. Alright. We're getting into Bible contradictions. We're going to talk all about it. I'm going to try to keep them short, but there's so much information I want to get in. You know, bear with it, please, 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 because there's so many rumors and it's so important that we get this down. The verse, I'm going to add more to this. I'm going to read this, give my personal take on it. The objection is this: the Bible has changed down through the ages. No, it hasn't. God has presented His word in this. God has preserved His word. Excuse me. In the spring of 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. These manuscripts were copies of large portions of the Old Testament, 1,000 years older than any other existing copies. Studies of the scrolls has revealed that the Bible hasn't changed in content down through the ages as many skeptics had surmised. Anyone can now obtain access to computer programs that give the original Hebrew and Greek words, and the only changes, in quotations, have been made for clarity. For example, the Old English translation, now this is like a King James, the Old English translation of 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 8 is, "For this thing I besought the Lord thrice." I like saying thrice. It's fun. While I'm laughing at myself, yeah, bad joke. While a contemporary translation is, "Concerning this thing I pleaded with the Lord 3 times." That's more like an NIV. I live in the NIV. I love that book. So, some more things to go on. One, you know, you hear, we'll talk about this, the Bible's been changed through the ages. Really, I want to start with something very simple. Jesus' death and resurrection. Was Jesus just a historical teacher that when he died, his disciples came up with this whole lie that he rose from the dead? Well, that was, you know, when we study other religions, from Buddhism to Hinduism to, and I'm not trying to start a fight with anybody, but when you study the big guns, the guys who you see everywhere, you do find either things that aren't balanced out, or we only have one person saying it, we can't back it up, or so on and so forth. We find subtle changes throughout the time. In fact, we can track those changes. With the Bible, we don't find that. So his death and resurrection, was it a joke? We actually have non-biblical texts that talk about Jesus. He's referred to as Christo, usually, in Greek. A historian by the name of Josephus talks about him. Josephus, anything you ever learned in high school or college is written by this guy, for the most part. He's just, I mean, historical scholars, whether it be biblical or non-biblical, they always go to this guy. So he quotes, not only was Jesus a real person, but some of the miracles that surround him. Jesus' death and resurrection, we have a text, parchment, that's been carbon dated 2 to 3 years after the actual event of Jesus' death, that states, it's one of the first church doctrine parchments we have, it's one of the oldest ones, that says he was raised from the dead. Biblically, when you read the New Testament letters that the apostles were writing back and forth to each other, when they addressed a skeptic, they didn't say, well, I know because God spoke to me, or something so forth, and they try to back it all up. Their simple comment was this: talk to the people around you, because they saw him rise. That was quite often what you saw. The Gospels were written really no later than 70 to 80 years. The main 4 Gospels, which are the 4 Gospels, they were written, 70 to 80 years. That's within the lifespan of the people who saw Jesus die. Another thing is, more than just the disciples saw him rise from the dead. The Bible also says, he showed himself to over 500 people, and he hung around for 40 days. People were seeing him. And we find this in the text. A lot of the time they answer the Pharisees, and the Pharisees are like, why are you coming up with all these lies? And the Pharisees, they turned to him and said, you saw him. that was really their thing. So it was fresh in the culture's mind. This was not made up later on, like 100 years later on. In fact, one of the Gospels was written no more, really, they think, than 45 to 50-something years after the event itself. Other miraculous events, when Jesus died, the book of Matthew says that the sun basically didn't shine. The sky went black, and it did so, I believe it was for a good portion of the day. Well, the historian Josephus, who wasn't actually at the site, he lived during when all this was going on. He wasn't actually at the site, actually refers to it. It was an actual legit event. The event, he quotes it like this. He goes, around, he states the time, it was 33 something, we call it AD. It would be 33 AD. The sky went black, and to the point, as he phrased it, this is how Josephus phrases it, as to the way that the stars shone. And he goes, and people he knew, basically Josephus is talking, he says people he knew who were in Rome, he has contacts, and in other areas, conferred with him that the sky was black there too, and the stars were shining there too in the middle of the afternoon, and then it lifted. His exact quote was he considered it to be a worldwide event. This is a full affirmation of what's in the Bible. When Jesus was killed on the cross, the sky went black. And when he returns, the sky will be split open, and he will return on the clouds, and it's going to be good times for all of us who do believe. Real bad times for those who don't. So, we have all this stuff, and I hope to touch on some of it. I said I wouldn't go long. It's been around 7 minutes. So, I hope you learned something, and let's keep going, because there's all kinds of facts. I had to do some digging in this one, and it's good. I also encourage you to read the book Case for Faith by Lee Strobel, ex-atheist. He just, basically in the book he's attacking Christians, trying to prove them wrong, and what he discovers. So, God bless you, and peace of Christ.